All right, welcome in, everybody. It is Thursday, but it's not just any Thursday, Rob Vino. It is Thursday of Conference Championship Week. One of the best days there is. Friday's the same. And then, of course, we get the championship games on Saturday. I love Selection Sunday for the bracket. I hate that there's so few games, and then you have to wait like a whole day with nothing. So really the next 2 days are for the bettors. And if you're just a college basketball fan, these next 2 days rival the first couple days of the NCAA tournament, in my opinion, Rob. So couldn't be more excited to get into it and start chatting with you. But first, what we do every day on this show is recap the day prior. I went out to Bethlehem, PA last night, Rob. Got to see Lehigh cut the Nets down and punch their ticket to the tournament. But I also went 2-0. I had Florida Atlantic and I had St. Bonaventure. So a nice 2-0 day. And hopefully we can replicate it today. How was your Wednesday night, Rob Vino? I think you're muted, bud.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I was 3-4 yesterday, Adam. Of course, in my world, they're all smaller plays. We're about to launch into larger plays pretty quickly here. And today we're ready to launch into a huge board today. Like you say, these next 2 days are fun days. Need them to be profitable days. But I'll just go through, the good is the good. We'll go through a couple of the bad here. Maybe misreads, maybe not so much misreads. But I'll start with the Idaho-Montana game where I should have never really had a chance to get over 146. But boy, in the end, it happened. A lot of these games, as we watch them unfold, you have no business with an over ticket, and all of a sudden you're in business with an over ticket because these extensions on games, especially during this time of year, is crazy. How teams will just they'll refuse to give up. They don't want their season to end. So that was one of the bad. Another one of the bad, man, I'm trying to think here really quick. What went off early yesterday? Well, early yesterday that was good was the Iowa State team total over. I think we talked about that game, so I'll hit on that for a minute. Arizona State, Bobby Hurley now officially out. Played Iowa State. I think you liked them as a side. I definitely liked them as a team total. Kind of talked about their inability to score. Came through in a big way. And because we have so many games here, I'm not even going to try and remember what I had, but I do know I'm pretty positive it was a 3-4 because it was a 1-1 in the NBA for a 4-5 overall. Let's get to what's happening today. It's far more important.
Well, that's a good segue because our feature game is once again Iowa State. I figured it went so well yesterday. We both kind of nailed that one. It's, I believe, our only matchup, ranked team versus ranked team, although I think you can throw those like top 25 rankings out, once you start to get to conference tournament and whatnot. But it is, I guess, officially ranked team versus ranked team matchup, the only one on the slate today. So early tip again, Big 12, glass court, or whatever the hell they're playing on, which hopefully won't be back last year because the players seem to hate it. But we've got Texas Tech, Iowa State. Rob, we just saw this matchup not too long ago. Monday, big Monday, March 2nd to be, I'm sorry, the Saturday, the 28th was when this game was played. Iowa State hosting Texas Tech. And that was a game that Iowa State lost. And in hindsight, I think we started to bring this up in yesterday's breakdown of the game. Maybe that was the spot where they were a little bit fatigued coming in, off of the Utah trip. Iowa State had played, BYU, lost that game. Utah, they beat Utah, but everyone's been beating Utah. And then a home game against Texas Tech, and they lost 82-73. Iowa State doesn't lose many home games like that. So I'm almost inclined to think that maybe that was a bad spot for them, Rob. And maybe today is a much better spot. So talk to me a little bit. Texas Tech, Iowa State, do you like this spot better for the Cyclones?
Yeah, that game in itself is somewhat interesting, Adam, because you don't know. I know how we reacted as bettors to JT Toppin being lost for the season, but you have to believe that the teams atop the Big 12 at the early part of his absence probably reacted the same way. No Toppin, bad for him, great for us. You know what I mean? Kind of that letdown deal without JT Toppin being out on the floor, because in Hilton Coliseum, you don't see those types of results all that often when Iowa State supposedly has the upper hand. I think if I were to classify it as a tough spot for Iowa State, I would say for that reason. I don't know that their mindset was right in that game to go out and take on Texas Tech, whose mindset always seems to be right. Because without Toppin, they've still come through in a few games. They've actually played better than I would have expected them to play in his absence. So we get what we get today. Iowa State. I had said yesterday that I thought this Big 12 conference tournament was an opportunity for Iowa State to reestablish, reset, readdress to everybody that we are one of those. We're not, the fraudulent Elite Eight team that we started to look at them as, but we are that type of person. And we have that type of person. Now we are that team. I don't like the number here, though. 5.5. I give Texas Tech far more credit than that under Grant McCasland to come here and show up. Advantages for Iowa State. A, they had a game yesterday. They've been on this court once. B, they have the revenge factor. C, I do think they have a little bit of an edge in personnel, obviously, without Toppin on the other side. I would think here, Adam, that they do, if they didn't have as much respect as necessary the first time around when they lost at home, they'll have it this time. So I can make a great case for Iowa State. What I can't make a great case for is laying this number, 5.5. Again, Texas Tech is really good defensive minded. Texas Tech has shot makers, perimeter shot makers, rim attackers. And any Grant McCasland team is still going to play pretty good defense. And I'll just revert back to yesterday. It didn't happen yesterday. Arizona State folded from the opening tip. But Iowa State is prone to scoring droughts. And off of yesterday's shooting performance, as fantastic as it was against this is like 3 steps up in defensive class from what they saw yesterday. So to me, I do think Iowa State, in my mind, they should win the game. But should they win by 6? Man, I don't know. To me, that number is too high. If I had to play it, I would play the Tech side. This total, I generally don't say odds makers have it nailed, and it's not really the odds makers who have it nailed because the money dragged it down to 143.5. But it's in a difficult area here for me to safely think of it as an over. The first game did hit 155, but again, I can see an Iowa State scoring drought here, and I can see a little bit of tough-minded defense out of both sides. Last thing I'll close with here, Adam, is I'm one to frequently say coaches like to fix what went wrong the first time. Iowa State giving up 82 to Texas Tech minus JT Toppin is what went wrong. And I think for the other side, Texas Tech just goes about their business here. So for me, if I had to bet it, lean Texas Tech, probably no play total.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not dying to lay the number. My number is right in line with where the market is, so I don't necessarily see value on Texas Tech, but I don't really want to lay that number either. What I will say is, if Texas Tech doesn't go out and shoot unconscious in this game, I think they probably lose. If you go back to the most recent meeting that we referred to in Ames. Texas Tech in that game, Rob, 58.5% from the field. That's pretty good. That's really good. I don't know if you replicate that against, Iowa State and what TJ Otzelberger can do defensively. 14 threes in that game for Texas Tech. Shot 58.5% from the field. If they don't kind of do that again, I think they're likely playing from behind at some point in this game. Now, I too agree with you in the respect that Arizona State was probably getting blown out by anyone yesterday. They clearly were just didn't have it in the tank after the Baylor win. So I don't want to put too much stock into that result because I think that was, Iowa State played well, but that was heavily, in my opinion, related to Arizona State kind of giving an all-out effort to beat Baylor and then having to come back against a team that they are far inferior to yesterday. So you get a 91-42 result sort of mixed in with the numbers there that maybe a little bit overstated. I mean, that's crazy. That's a 50-point win. That's probably not totally indicative of like what the score should be between those two teams. But yeah, you get Iowa State already having the experience of playing on the floor, already having the experience of playing an early tip, because of course Iowa State was in the early tip off yesterday. So this is probably one that Wager Talk's not going to want to clip, because I kind of like Iowa State here. That's the way I lean. But again, I can't say that with enough conviction to like, want to fully go against you. So Rob, maybe we just kind of move on quickly from this one, because there's so many other games. It needed to be discussed because it's the only game today where we've got ranked opponent for ranked opponent. But I just don't see. I'm not going to have a bet on that one, and we kind of like opposite sides. So let's move on now, and we'll get an extra game in here today. All right, let's move on to Garth. Garth has donated. He appreciate the donation, Garth, and he says 1-1 yesterday since he fell short, but the Air Force Nevada first half under was swept free. Today, yeah, it was swept free. I didn't watch any of that Nevada Air Force game, but I saw that Air Force had 4 points for like a very long time at one point. So I don't even need to look to know that under was swept free. Oh, he's doing he's going to the alma mater. I know how you feel, Garth. I don't go out of my way to bet on or against Siena, but sometimes it falls in your lap, and I just had a great weekend backing my alma mater. So we hope you do as well. This is going to be Conference USA tournament, Rob. And again, with all the games today, it just takes me a second to navigate. Kelly Stewart would be badgering you for a rotation number right now. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to find it on the screen, and I have found it, Rob. He wants to talk his alma mater, the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. They take on Kennesaw State. You've had a better beat in this league than I have this year, so I'm going to let you start this one off. Kennesaw State, Western Kentucky. Garth's looking at the money line for his alma mater, but also if you have a side or total, give us the breakdown.
Well, Garth could be looking at double revenge for WKU. Kennesaw beat him twice, and within a short span, Adam. It's so interesting. We've talked about this numerous times. I think for you and I, it started way back when you were kind of letting your feelings be known about the Miami of Florida in-conference schedule. But these conference schedules, because of the amount of teams in them, and this conference in particular, because of the travel and whatnot, they played twice in 11 days. And Kennesaw won both meetings. And neither meeting was high scoring, which is kind of crazy that in a 2-game series with Kennesaw, that you can't get one game to be high scoring. 81-65 Kennesaw, 72-69 Kennesaw. WKU falls short in both of those. Kind of interesting to me that they score 65 and 69 against this defense. Just doesn't make a lot of sense that Western wouldn't be able to put up points. But I will say this, as the season went on, towards season's end, Western Kentucky was on an offensive roll. This is a team that I was kind of, let's say, disenchanted with the way they were playing offense. Normally with Western Kentucky, college football, college basketball, I'm looking at a lot of offense. Here this year, we didn't see a lot of point production, but we saw it at the end of the year. Things may turn around a little bit, but they gave up a bunch last two, Missouri State and FIU, 87 and 92 points allowed. Man, I wanted so badly to play over here, but this season series dictates to me that you can't possibly play over 157.5. Kennesaw is a really good team on the boards. So to me, could be an edge. Of course, Kennesaw is going to play with that pace. Western Kentucky found a way to somewhat, handle that Kennesaw pace. It was quick, but it wasn't what I would call rapid tempo quick, the way Kennesaw State wants to play. So to Western Kentucky's credit, in their positive list, they've kind of found a way to handle the pace, but they haven't found a way to score against this team. If Garth is playing a double revenge angle, you can't argue with that. Although I will say this, you can't beat people 3 times in 1 year is not coming up. That adage we might as well just burn it in the bonfire, because we're seeing teams win 3 straight times against opponents. It's almost as if you have their number during the regular season, then you just have the matchup personnel to do it one more time, especially on neutral floors. So For me, I'm not rooting against Garth in any way, shape, or form. I don't have a play on the game. I would have looked at it from a totals perspective, but I can't get to the over here. And I can't trust enough that any Kennesaw State game will just stay under. So best for me to lay off when there's like a 60 game slate out here today.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about this one too. So I wish I had more to offer. Of course, my computer is loading. I was trying to figure out. I feel like this was another one where I was pretty close on the number. So I'm gonna audible here. Well, I'm gonna stay in the Conference USA because I don't want to just if I talk about that game, I'm essentially gonna say a lot of what you said and then not give really much of an opinion because I just don't have as much of an opinion on that one. So what I would say is if you're trying to bet that game, I think Garth is like 17-7 or something in his last 24. And if he likes Western Kentucky, maybe that's the way you should look at that one. But because we're on the topic, Rob, of Conference USA, I will throw some thoughts out on the other Conference USA game today. Middle Tennessee State, Louisiana Tech. I was at the first meeting between these two teams, and Middle Tennessee State just could not miss to the point where, Rob, it was like people in the stands were laughing because everything they threw up went in. They hit 22 threes in that game. They won by like 30. It was just if you ever just wanted the definition of this was their night, that was Middle Tennessee State in the first meeting against Louisiana Tech. Could not miss, 30-point blowout. Now, if you go look at the second meeting, Rob, and you look at the box score, you're going to see a close game. And I believe you're going to see a Louisiana Tech win 59-58, the return meeting in Ruston, Louisiana. Now, the interesting thing about that game is that game was not a close game until the end. Middle Tennessee State was up 20 in that game as well. 40-21 at halftime, had a 20-point lead in the second half, and somehow managed to lose the game on the road in that game. So I guess the thought I wanted to point out, like I tried to make a case for Middle Tennessee State, and I do think that they match up better with La Tech than vice versa. And where I think you have some, I guess, tangible evidence of that being the case is they have a 30-point win in the first meeting, which was, I was trying to find the exact score, 88-51. It was actually 38-point win in the first meeting, 37. I need a calculator over here right now, Rob. Can't add. But what I can tell you, much more simple math, that the second meeting, 59-58, got much closer, but Middle Tennessee State still had a 20-point lead at one point in that game. And maybe that just goes back to what you and I have been saying all year in this conference, where it's tough to close games out on the road, and they couldn't close out a 20-point lead on the road. I still think if you look at 80 minutes between these two teams, Middle Tennessee State has been the more impressive side, and they've matched up better. And if their shots are going to fall in this matchup, I just don't see how La Tech has much of a chance. So I'm actually going to make this my parlay leg. I'm just going to put Middle Tennessee State money line in the parlay. I have not bet this yet for clients. I actually haven't bet anything yet for clients, but that's a little bit by design. Rob, I've decided that I kind of want to wait out this 10 to 11 a.m. rush of fakes and moves and stuff like that. That's kind of what I did yesterday. And, we had St. Bonaventure because it was an early game. So I'm going to have plenty of action today. This might very well be one of them. I see it's taking money as we speak. So all we'll do is just put the money line in, and Middle Tennessee State money line will be my parlay leg today. Now, Rob, forgot in the recap, nice 2-team winner for us in the parlay yesterday. So maybe we'll add a third leg today. We'll see. But one of them is going to be Middle Tennessee State money line. Anything for you on the total in that game? How do you even handicap Middle Tennessee State just going bombs away from three?
Yeah, I think the first part of the handicap, if you just go with what the evidence shows us, is that Louisiana Tech has had a hard time scoring against this team. And not only did Louisiana Tech have an especially hard time scoring against this team, but they've had a hard time scoring all season long. So if one side is going to have that much difficulty, they couldn't correct what went wrong the first time around. They couldn't score any better. The blowout loss they get in the 50s. The rematch, they win in the 50s. Can't get the 60 points twice against MTSU. That would immediately draw me to under. The problem with this total under is that it's 131. And if Middle Tennessee goes crazy like they did shooting the basketball in the first game, you wind up with an over. So the total's in a difficult spot. I agree with you that the only way to look at this would be from the MTSU side. That second half, in that second game, they scored like 18 points, Middle Tennessee, and still only lost by one. You mentioned they blew a big lead, but I don't know how MTSU goes that cold against this team other than the obvious, which is Louisiana Tech has been a team all season long predicated in defense and not much scoring. They want you to get into the grinder. Middle Tennessee can play in the grinder, but I think they would prefer to show some pace here. So we'll see. Neutral floor, I'd have to favor Middle Tennessee. Everything between these two meetings indicates they're the better side.
Rob, I'm going to give you one more thing that might explain that second half. So you and I, since the beginning of Conference USA play, have noted the travel in this league is crazy. And so that La Tech game came as the third game of 3 straight road games. And so this was Thursday, the 8th. Middle Tennessee went to UTEP. That's El Paso, Texas. Saturday, the 10th, they were in Las Cruces. That's New Mexico. And then Wednesday, the 14th, down in Ruston, Louisiana. So that was 3 road games in the span of like 6 or 7 days. El Paso, Las Cruces, Ruston, Louisiana. Not exactly the easiest road trip. I mean, listen, I've driven some of these road trips this year. I make my own road trips going to all these games. That would even be tough. I don't even know if I could handle that, Rob. And I'm just sitting there watching the game. I don't play. So you got to think maybe Middle Tennessee State straight up ran out of gas, because 40-21 in the first half is, goes from very convincing to how in God's name did we blow that lead? Maybe it's just the travel in this league, catching up with them on a 3-game road trip across the country. They don't have that today. So yeah, I really do like the Middle Tennessee State side quite a bit. Okay, let's go back here. Well, I'll pick a game because I don't think anyone's going to have a problem with this. 11 a.m. tip. A team that hasn't lost yet this year, Rob Vino, the Miami, Ohio Redhawks. I was at the game with Brian Power in Athens, and it was definitely one of the most enjoyable basketball games I've ever been at. It was just a tremendous game, awesome crowd. BP was out of control, so it was just awesome. We had a great time. Ohio had them on the ropes. Pavletsky had a look. It goes to overtime, but ultimately Miami of Ohio finishes their perfect season, their perfect MAC record. They're the 1 seed in this league. And Rob, what do they get? An 11 a.m. tip and no advantage. No advantage, nothing. Just a pat on the back here for being the 1 seed. And then, of course, an early tip against a UMass team that was pretty much right there with them on 2 occasions. So this one starts at the top of the hour. I can't even believe this. Miami of Ohio's perfect season is on the line at 11 a.m. Eastern in literally 37 minutes. Mind-blowing to me. They can't even get like the 8 p.m. tip or the 7 p.m. tip. Rocket Arena, Cleveland, Ohio. UMass, Miami of Ohio. Do the Minutemen have any chance here, Rob?
Oh, they have a chance for sure. We've seen that twice already, right? In fact, they had a better than good chance the first time around. That one's scared. Miami's been in so many late, scary situations of having that one loss put in their column, and this was one of them the first time around. And then the second time around back at Amherst, I mean, wasn't as close, but still, UMass was never blown out of the water in that game. It's not like they had to paddle back and catch up. They were in that game the entire way. Just a little more margin, a little more separation created by Miami in that one. To your point here, Adam, you would think that if you're going to stick Miami of Ohio with an 11 a.m. game, you would be doing that in order to make to give your number 1 seed an advantage by maybe bracketing them so that they can play the team that plays the very last game of the night. So you get more rest. The early game against the extreme late game, it's not even the case. It's just like, okay, Miami of Ohio, we don't, most of these teams try to protect, our leagues try to protect their number one seed. I don't know that there's a lot of protection going on in the MAC right now with them. Frank Martin's had 2 shots at Miami of Ohio. What I will say from a totals perspective is it's kind of been the same game twice. Very high scoring. I don't know that changes here because what UMass did to Miami the first time around was absolutely destroy them from an offensive standpoint, interior, inside the paint. Whether it be lane penetration, whether it be big guys just going, avoiding the double team and going one-on-one, the interior play was all UMass from an offensive perspective in that game. They weren't as good, but they were still 51%, 51.5% from 2-point range in the second game. So I think that advantage exists for Miami or for Massachusetts. If you're a Miami I don't know, Adam. You've had 2 games, but after watching the second game, I feel like they can't correct that. Like the size advantage is what the size advantage is in this game for UMass. The other end of that spectrum is Miami O's perimeter players, just, Suter, Elmer, these guys have their way against UMass. And as long as they have a decent shooting day, they will again. So for me, little bit head scratching that the total would come down. But I will say this. Teams haven't played in a while. And if we're going to go rest versus rust, go ahead. I see you want to hop in with me.
Well, yeah, you said that a little surprised the total came down, but do you think that's just 11 a.m. tip neutral venue money? Like that has nothing to do with the actual game? Because that's kind of what I feel like.
Yeah, it probably is all situational. Like I say, this rest versus rust thing, which we can never, like I always say, it's true. Anybody who tells you I knew rest was going to help them. Oh, I knew they were going to be rusty. They're full of expletive. We don't know that until the game is over. And if you're playing it on a neutral, it could be that both of these teams come out a little bit cold here. Hard to say that about Miami of Ohio because their shooting percentages are through the roof after like a 35-game season. They're not showing any decline in shooting the basketball. If I had to play here, I think I would take a look. And I've had, there's one team, and I see, again, I don't generally look at the chat, but I laugh here because I see Bayou with a quote that I use often, left at the altar. Miami of Ohio is a team that twice now has hooked me with a team total. So I won't play it because if I play over 84.5, they're going to score 84, guaranteed. But it's I kind of look at over, and maybe you're better off, Adam, to just play second half over, let the first half play out, and then let the guys get into shape here. I think UMass has an opportunity. I thought this a couple days ago when I saw this matchup. I'm thinking to myself, man, UMass might be the team that gets them, and this undefeated season might end really, really quickly. If I had to play, I'd take 7.5 here.
Yeah. So the hard part about this for me is that I think Miami of Ohio will score like pretty much as they want. So the question becomes, can UMass keep up with them? The answer so far has been yes. Like UMass has been able to keep up with them, which would actually push me, I think, more toward a full game over, because I do think you get scoring from both places. Now, then you've got the new wrinkle of, okay, well, we're playing this game at 11 a.m. I mean, we have seen there is, I don't know how much of it is like legitimate, but I think we remember like when there's an 11 a.m. game and it comes out and it looks like both teams are asleep, we remember that more than like, okay, this is just a normal game occurring at 11 a.m. So I just don't know how much that really matters. Here's my problem with the side. It's that I think matchup wise, Miami of Ohio is going to be fine because UMass is such a mess defensively that they're not going to be able to make any sort of adjustment to limit Miami of Ohio from getting open shots. This is such an elite spread offense for Miami of Ohio that they will get their open shots. Now, could they miss them because it's 11 a.m. and it's just they're off a little bit? Yeah, I suppose that could happen. But if they don't, they're going to score. They'll get their 84 points, Rob, maybe even 85 if you don't bet it. If you don't bet it, they might get 95, or 100.
I'll leave that for you guys.
But the problem here is UMass. There's two problems if you like Miami of Ohio, in my opinion. Problem number one, UMass is equipped to keep up. They can play through Betty all in the post, and they will score. They've shown the ability to get to the rim and score points and hang around in the game. The second problem, if you like Miami of Ohio, in my opinion, the odds makers have really priced in the tax, right? Like, I've got this number at 5, but you can get 8. At least there was 8s out there. I don't know if it's back to 7.5. So the point is, the odds makers are forcing you to pay the tax to lay it with Miami of Ohio. I just don't necessarily think that that's the wrong move. So for me, it was a pretty easy pass. But if you think UMass hangs around in this game, it has to go over, in my opinion. Like, I don't see a scenario where UMass covers and the game stays under. So do what you will. I don't know what you do with that, but like, I think there's some correlation there, Rob. I think if UMass covers this number, it has to go over, in my opinion.
I'd agree. And just for context of how difficult it is to make a choice whether teams are going to come out sleepwalking or shooting, just take a look at that St. Bonaventure game yesterday, played at 11:30 a.m., where St. Bonnie scores 99 points and LaSalle comes back. Yep. That game totaled 179 points. Who would have thought that was going to happen? If you had that mindset and you alternative bet that thing over 178, you don't need to play today. So it can go either way. I do think these two teams, like we've both mentioned here, have shown us this game is kind of a one-way ticket as far as offense is concerned. It's way more offensive than defensive. As we speak, Adam, I see a little bit of a bump back now from 160 to 160.5. So there's some resistance coming back the other way.
Yeah. Once again, they're watching the show, Rob. That's how it goes. We talk about it. Moves immediately. Listen, we're not going to get to nearly as many games as there are today, but Rob and I will both have a loaded card. That, in my opinion, for college hoop, the best value you can find on the site right now is the 3-day double the firepower CVV package. It's all of my plays. It's all of Rob's plays. And this 3-day window, Thursday, Friday, Saturday of conference tournament, I mean, from a value standpoint, it's as good as you're going to get. We also have the package up through the NCAA tournament. If you are looking for a longer term, we've got that as well. Dan J says Lehigh was a lock. Stabler Arena was very humid. Definitely a home court advantage. Yeah, it was hot as hell in there, Dan. I was in a t-shirt and I was sweating in the t-shirt last night. Like it was, and you know why? Because that building was built in the 70s, super close quarters, but a really cool building out there. And the Lehigh fans showed out last night. There was like 5,000 people. The venue holds 5,600, which is actually very big for the Patriot League, and it was pretty close to full. So that was really cool last night. And congratulations to Lehigh for the first. I believe they'll be in the NCAA tournament for the first time since the infamous Duke collapse. Infamous. No one likes Duke, Rob. So everyone was excited about that. Of course, CJ McCollum, that Lehigh team pulled the big upset. I think this Lehigh team is going to be playing on Tuesday next week in the first 4. So there actually might be a spot. Maybe we'll get a chance to bet Lehigh against a like opponent. All right, let's go to Manzi. Manzi says, great hit yesterday, fellas. If he's referring to the parlay, appreciate you. Yeah, St. Bonaventure, Sam Houston, both get it done. We'll be trying to do it again today, maybe a 3-teamer. We've already got one of the legs locked in. We've got a half hour to lock in another 2. All right, I wanted to talk about this game, so I'm glad you brought it up. I'm assuming, he says, I'm leaning GM. I'm assuming that's George Mason. And this is an interesting one because I came into yesterday thinking that, okay, part of the reason I like St. Bonaventure is I thought this maybe set up for them to make a little bit of a run. They come out yesterday, Rob. They handle LaSalle like I expected. It was, I played 2 things yesterday, and that was so obviously one of my favorite angles of the day was St. Bonaventure. They had no problem with LaSalle. I thought I would be more inclined to be on them again than I am when I saw the number. I kind of think the odds makers maybe got this one right a little bit. I was hoping for like five. I was hoping for like a Bonnie's plus 5.5. This one, at least last I checked, was down in the 3.5 range. So, Manzi, I guess I personally lean St. Bonaventure, but I wonder if my logic is a little bit flawed in the respect that, like, and I'm going to turn it over to Rob to sort of just talk in general about this. Do you ever find yourself, Rob, in conference tournaments, like wanting to go back to the same team and having a hard time, like basically treating it as a new game? So, like, if you win, like yesterday, I won with the Bonnies, and in my head, I'm like, well, I think they could make a little run. I think sometimes does that cloud your thinking at all, is like what I'm trying to say. Because like here I am just wanting to run it back with St. Bonaventure, and I feel like I have to pull myself back a little bit and say, look at this game and don't try to forget about what happened yesterday when you're handicapping this game, I guess is I'm curious to get your take on that.
Yeah, I tell you what, it just happened to me twice. It happened to me with Idaho 2 nights in a row. Like, why didn't I just go play Idaho all the way through that? And, it's a team that I thought I had a good read on. It's a team where, the folks watching the show have heard me relentlessly talk about Colton Mitchell. And Colton Mitchell wasn't even a factor last night. But without even diving deep into what happened with Idaho winning that tournament, the answer to your question is yes. I found myself in that spot as recently as last night again. Should have had Idaho against Montana. This one, I think, in my opinion, just comes down to, St. Bonnie had such a huge advantage yesterday against LaSalle where personnel is concerned, that in this case, you're playing the George Mason team that they played the front end of the season a lot stronger than they played the back end. Again, the problem with these teams, Adam, that are predicated on the defensive side is there's only a handful of them that can play the necessary offense to give you confidence to play them. George Mason, when I back them this year, I find myself just like clenching my hands and hoping, or clenching my fists and hoping that they don't go into these scoring droughts, which they inevitably do. It's not that often where George Mason is clean offensively through 40 minutes. That rarely happens. Could happen today. It's college basketball, but it doesn't happen. So you have to assume they're going to have a tough time at some point scoring. But my counter to that is St. Bonaventure has been so bad defensively all season long that this is probably what you would call like a perfect elixir for the George Mason offense to come out here. The positive side for Bonaventure, I can't make positive sides fundamentally or positive arguments fundamentally, but I could make them situationally. I think that win yesterday does great. It does wonders for St. Bonnie's mindset, for their psyche. 19-point win, coach job, 99 points. Let's go. We had a bad season. We can correct it all right here. So we see those types of teams, do some damage at conference tournament time. Have a poor regular season, come back with a really strong conference tournament season, and it's all ignited from a general perspective. It's all ignited by that first win. If you get that first win, that's the confidence builder. That would, somewhat negate any case I could make for George Mason. It depends which one you weigh heavier, the George Mason, they're a better team aspect, or the St. Bonnie. Listen, confident teams on a roll, or that can get on a roll, are dangerous. So for me, it's probably a good stay away, because I could see that one, when that game's over, I could see you and I talking about it either way. George Mason was just too good, or man, St. Bonnie's confident right now. But look out.
Yeah. Rob, you do such a good job of following coaches and being tuned into what they're saying. And I feel like we'd be remiss to not point out the Schmidt angle here, where, this is a guy that, I think I made the comparison yesterday on the show. You had the whole, Bobby Hurley, and, maybe he's not like always the most well-liked. Whereas you got a guy like Schmidt, who's been there for 2 decades, very, very well-liked by the St. Bonaventure community. So this is one where, liked by his players. Like, I don't think I've really heard many negatives about him over the years. completely turned that program around. I mean, when he took that program over 20 years ago, I think they were coming off of like almost having to cancel I think they had to cancel a season due to like something that was going on within the program. That I have to go back and look exactly what St. Bonaventure did. Let's put it this way. They were in a bad spot. And so I almost think motivation wise, the Bonnies obviously want to, try to give it like their absolute best shot for him. But on the flip side, Rob, I was at George Mason's most recent game. I had to rub the glasses for a second. I thought Tony Skinn subbed himself in because they looked like the Final Four team in that game. They destroyed St. Louis, destroyed them. They were up 30 the majority of that game. And that goes back to your point where, yeah, that George Mason team on the final day of the season looked like the George Mason team from earlier in the season that people were like, oh, they're going to win this league. Because before St. Louis really fully emerged, George Mason was right up there at like 7 or 8-1 in this league as well. So it's a fascinating game, but like I think if you forced a lean out of me in this one, it would be St. Bonaventure, just because I felt like they played so well yesterday, and kind of what you're saying, Rob, you get one, and that can be the snowball effect. So I slight lean toward the Bonnies for me here. All right, I somehow lost what I was going to put on the screen, but I know what game it is. Here it is. Garth has donated again. Very much appreciate you. And he brought up a game that I apparently came on ready to talk about because I wore the Louisville gear here, Rob. So I wore the Louisville zip up. So we got to talk Miami, Louisville. And what Garth says is he's looking at the team total. Yeah, we just saw this game 5 days ago, and Miami, Florida scored 89. Louisville scored 92 in that game, Rob. And they kind of shot the lights out. And the way I look at this, I know I've been very anti-Miami at times this year, but if Louisville doesn't shoot the ball the way they do, they lose that game. And they haven't always shot it, like especially when they're not in their home gym, which they won't be here. They'll be on a neutral floor. They haven't always shot the lights out this year outside of the Yum Center. So my question to you, and you can talk about Garth's team total as well. If Louisville doesn't shoot the lights out today, are they losing this game? And what do you think about the total?
Yeah, what's amazing is they shot the lights out without Mikel Brown. And, do you get to do that twice without him? I'm not sure. He's such an important part of that three-point offense, which is where Louisville really generates everything from their three-point shooting. So, if I had to project, will they do what they did to Miami a few days ago? No, I don't think they will. Not without Brown as a key component. And also, the short-term turnaround here. Listen, I've talked a lot about Jay Lucas being a guy who, anytime a microphone is in front of him, will make sure that everybody listening knows we're a team of physicality. We're physical. We're a physical basketball team. That's our nature. That's our blueprint. That's our calling card, so to speak. And when you go through the defensive results against them this year, that type of offensive performance against Miami is an outlier. That's got to stick in the back of your head really fresh for Miami because it happened so recently. I think Miami comes back with a better defensive effort in this one. I kind of, my initial reaction to this was I like the Miami side. I like Miami's ability to score, even though they're not as flashy as Louisville. They're not splashing threes. It's not as aesthetically pleasing, but Miami still scores. They score in a different way, and they score a lot. So to me, I thought the Miami side was correct here, Adam. I think there's a lot of, revenge gets tossed around too much, and probably by myself as well. I say it way too much. But I think that there is a part of Miami that wants to correct what happened to their defense in that game, because that type of defense hasn't shown up on Miami's side almost all season long. They've been a very good defensive team inside conference. So rather than total, I kind of like the Hurricanes here. It's funny. This team somewhat has a chip on their shoulder. Like, somebody recognize us, please, as a good team. And they continually go out in workmanlike fashion and record-wise, they prove it. So for me, it would probably be that more than the total. And I can't disagree with Garth's total because on the other end of that, I don't know what Pat Kelsey and Louisville can do to correct Miami scoring against them. Like, Louisville's not a good defensive team. They want to get into a track meet. It's their style. They'll allow you to score, which allows them to score, to come right back at you. I could see Miami's team total going over, but more than that, I do like the Miami side here.
Yeah, I lean toward Miami as well, even though I've been anti-Miami this year, but that makes a lot of sense. I've actually criticized Pat Kelsey on this show for the lack of adjustments. I feel like he doesn't make enough adjustments, especially in game. The game that comes to mind was the Louisville, I think it was North Carolina game, where it was so clear as day that UNC was going to run them off the 3-point line. And almost they were almost like sort of like daring them to go to the rim at times. And Louisville just insisted on taking tough three after tough three. And I've also noted Louisville's just like kind of how they no-show games like this, like any big game that's in sort of like a standalone spot. They have an awful record in like nationally televised big games in the Pat Kelsey era. They really have not won many of them. And so again, I mean, this will be in the shuffle of the afternoon games, but I believe this is like kind of like one of the main games of the 2:00 window. So my final question to you, Rob, is are you comfortable making this a 3-teamer and using Miami as our joint leg of the 3-teamer? Because I'm good with it if you are.
Yeah, let's go ahead and we both like it, so let's go ahead and use it. I mean, usually when we're in agreement here, it works out pretty well. So we'll get on that one. I'm trying, it's coming close to the time where I have to go ahead and add the other leg to the parlay, and I'm just trying again to sort my thoughts out here.
Yeah, let's
take one more game. Let's take one more game, and then I'll go.
I was going to say, I'll give you one. You can close it out with that. We have time. We have time for one more. So someone asked what was the parlay. Like always, we're going to recap it at the very end. We do have 2 legs locked in, and we'll recap it at the end. All right, I'm going to go grab one at random here. This is an interesting one. So a couple people have asked about UNLV Utah State. Stomps says, don't think UNLV wins, but I think they're 2-0 against Utah State this year. They are playing at home. Rob, you love your quote. Did you see the Josh Pastner interview yesterday? The guy was, I mean,
God bless everything.
Yeah, that is worth a watch for sure. But he made sure to point out that UNLV has been awful at the Thomas and Mack Center over the years in this tournament. And he also made sure to point out, Rob, that they finally beat someone not named Air Force in the Mountain West tournament. That was, of course, yesterday with their win over Wyoming. The Utah State UNLV thing is as puzzling as it gets to me. If you go back to the first meeting, Utah State blew a big lead and lost in Logan, something they never do. And then they just got straight up blown out at Thomas and Mack. Now, I look at this and say, that's definitely baked into the number now. This number is a little bit short based on like I kind of where I had these teams power rated. But I mean, listen, UNLV's been playing good ball, and they clearly have figured out something with this Utah State team. So what do you make of that? Because Utah State is probably the better team, but they have just looked awful in 2 games against UNLV this year. So can you find a bet in that one?
It's hard to ignore, but again, third meeting, better team has lost twice. Here's a case where I would consider the better team in a double revenge angle mode. Again, I just said a few minutes ago that we throw revenge around too often. It's not always applicable. It's a nice term to use when you're trying to build a case for your team or your side. But in this instance, I do think it does apply. Utah State has clearly been better all season long. Utah State did have a little bit. And, the Mountain West is one of those, Adam, where the talent levels are so consistent. The competitiveness of these teams, this group of teams at the top, is so close that you're going to have these stretches just like you would in an SEC, just like you would in the Big 12. Look at Houston lost 3 in the Big 12. It's kind of the same in the Mountain West where you can get beat up for a little bit. At season's end, Utah State didn't look as great as they did through the middle. But here's what we know about Jared Calhoun. He's every time that team's on the floor, he's looking for style points. He's looking to show the committee something. So my first feeling is if you're going to lay points with Utah State, don't worry too much about it because Jared Calhoun's going to try as hard as he can to win by larger margin for you. He's not a guy that's going to dribble out the last 30 seconds of the game. He's probably going to attack the rim and get a bucket. We've seen it happen. We've seen other, one instance where another coach was angry with him. I do think they're better. I think their offense at times is unstoppable. The question for them is, can they stop UNLV, who's put up 86 and 92 against them? They can't find a way to stop UNLV. I think they can do enough there this time, Adam. I kind of like the Utah State side in this one. Now, the problem you run into is it's Thomas and Mack. And again, they hadn't performed well at home this year. But in this setting, I've been in this place before when the conference tournament time rolls around and UNLV's on the floor. It's a little bit different. So I think I would lean more towards Utah State team total in this one. I think they score against UNLV in this particular instance and probably score enough to win the game. Whether or not they can cover a 7.5 number is a little bit tough. I'm looking here, Adam, and it seems to me like our odds screens are down unless that's just me. I cannot get a
sometimes you got to go at. Sometimes you have to just X out and then re-log back in. I think. Let me just. Yeah, let me double check because it looks like it's working. You have to X out and then go back in. I've had to do it a few times.
It's funny. As you said that, I was doing it, and you're right. I got it back here. So total's gone down in this particular game to 156.5. That Utah State total has held firm. Interesting that their number is held firm, even though the full game total has gone down 81.5 to the over for Utah State side. I think I could look that way in that game.
Yeah, it's weird because, I lean toward UNLV on the number in the first 2 meetings. And my number actually slightly leans toward them again here, just to find exactly what it is. Like I'm at 5.7 Utah State. I believe this is still 6.5. So close, but I'm still shading toward, UNLV having the value. And I just can't stomach like going against Utah State in what would be a third straight. Like, even though UNLV has looked tremendous through 80 minutes in this series so far this year, I just have to wonder how important either of those regular season meetings were to Utah State. Of course, the first one, you wouldn't fault Utah State for sort of just rolling the balls out and thinking they could go get a win in the first meeting. They were like an 18-point favorite or a 17.5-point favorite in that game that they lost to UNLV. So I think the first meeting, UNLV kind of caught them a little bit off guard. The second meeting, Utah State straight up didn't come to play, but it was like toward the end of the regular season. You just have to think, Rob, that if Utah State shows up focused here, they're probably not losing this game. And then it's like, all right, you only have to cover 6 or 6.5. My gut says that this falls near the number. I think this probably falls somewhat close to the number, or Utah State's just going to blow them out. I just don't know if I could see UNLV winning 3 times as a sizable dog in the same season. That would be pretty crazy if it happens. Bayou's thinking like this. This is how he's thinking like me. He's like, oh, UNLV's 2-0 against Utah State,
right?
But the Aggies are a heavy favorite. Slam Utah State. I mean,
right.
I get the mindset, I understand that. Someone here said 6 minutes till tip off. Yeah, we already talked about the Miami of Ohio UMass game. So as always, you can rewind. This show is up on demand. If when you watch it on demand on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, hit that like button. Maybe drop us a comment. It absolutely helps the show, and we will try to get in there and answer as many of them as we can, like we do every day. Rob Vino, do you know where you want to go to close this parlay out?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, I think maybe Ed is just telling people, hey, get your favorite position, 6 minutes, because buckle in. We got a big day here on the East
that's true.
Coast. Last night, another one on the East Coast here where we are at 11:30 a.m. and then they end at about 1:30 a.m. It's such a long day. And then you go to work at 1:30 a.m., at least in my case, back to the office and try and get something. What I'm going to leave for the chat here as the third leg of our parlays, let's just go back to familiarity and what's been really good for us and something that I like here. I'm going to keep people up late. I just talked about staying up late on the East Coast. I'll keep you up late. Big West tournament. Second game on the board, UC Davis, Cal State, Fullerton. I'm going to play the Fullerton team total over 77.5. It comes attached with a number of 15 cents, over minus 15 cents here. Davis is shorthanded, and they play. I got caught here last night, Adam. I played Santa Barbara. Oh, Miro Little's getting his second game back. Santa Barbara, I had thought when he's present, they could be the best team in this league. And man, Jim Less's team did a job on him last night. UC Davis didn't really miss a shot. As I go through the numbers here, it was 60% from 2-point range, 28 of 58 for the day, just a shade under 50%. Didn't have Cooper. They're a little bit shy. And then at the end of the game, and I don't know how this is going to affect him, Connor Sevilla hurts his wrist. Went to the free throw line, though, and made a couple of free throws. So maybe it's much ado about nothing, but maybe overnight that wrist stiffens. Who knows? Regardless of that, Fullerton in the road game in this series got shut down by UC Davis. In the home game, they went nuts. It was a 1-point game played in the 90s on both sides. I am far more apt to play Fullerton's tempo, Fullerton's shooting ability. Santa Barbara, to me, last night just left way too many points on the table. It was not a typical Santa Barbara effort as far as offense is concerned. They've been so efficient offensively all year long. Were not that last night. If they had been, they might have won that game. But credit to UC Davis. I just don't know that they come back with the same type of defensive effort against this tempo, against this team that's already proven they can get into the 90s against them. So for me, and again, this is as much a bet on the number as it is on Fullerton, which of course is a Big West pace team, which is right up my alley. 77.5 seemed low, Adam. I thought it would be up in maybe 80.5 range. It's not. I think that's attributed to UC Davis and their reputation. Can they slow these guys down tonight? I'm not so sure. So give me Fullerton as the third leg of the parlay here, up and over 77.5 team total.
Love it. It spaces the day out nicely. We got the parlay is going to take literally all day. So hopefully Miami can start it up for us, and then we go Middle Tennessee, and then we go, we get a total at night. I mean, someone's like Rob is nocturnal. I really never sleep either. Someone the other day is like, well, how are you watching games and stuff when you're always driving around? I strategically time out when I'm going to drive, but Rob, radio broadcast, if you're trying to learn, and if you're straight up going for info, which is what Rob and I are, info is more valuable to us than like getting to like watch ball in a lot of scenarios. The radio broadcasts are where all the info is, because like you've got, you usually most schools are going to have guys that are dedicated to radio, whereas like the TV broadcast is just whoever the network assigned to it. It's not that they don't know the teams they're covering, but it's usually like they get in, quick note-taking session, and then they go do the broadcast. Whereas like the radio broadcasts are like the degenerate psychos that like are only following that team and are like living and dying on every pick. So that's what I do when I'm driving around. I listen to FAU Temple on the radio last night on the drive, and it's like, you learn a lot more. Tune into a radio broadcast sometime for one of these teams and tell me how much more you learn by the radio broadcast. That's what I do when I'm driving around in the car.
Real quick, for those in the chat, I'll swear by this. I say it all the time, that the people who invented the ability to get television on your iPhone are my heroes. Real quick, I've been married now for 37. It'll be 38 years since 1980. There are places, Adam, I would never go. Married with my wife. No, we're not going. Games that we're not going. Now, I go a lot of places because I drag that iPhone with me and I can watch games no matter where I am. So for those who want to know how you do it as you drive, you just got two ways. Listen to the radio broadcast or bring your iPhone and tune into one of the, 60 games that's probably being broadcast on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, guys, I see everyone in the chat freaking out about the parlay being read. It's always going to be on demand. And two, the play is not in the first game that's going to start. So everyone relax.
Right.
We're going to read the parlay right now, the 3 legs, and I'll do them in order of time, okay? Which starts at 2:30 Eastern. So you got 2.5 hours. Is going to be Miami, Florida, +1.5. Actually, we'll call it +1. It looks like they've taken a little bit of money. So Miami, Florida, +1. Middle Tennessee State money line, whatever that is, I'll put in there, and I'll calculate the odds off air. And then Fullerton team total over 77.5, and that one's definitely going to have some juice attached to it. We'll call it -115. One more time: Miami, Florida, +1, 2:30 Eastern tip. Middle Tennessee State money line. Fullerton team total over 77.5. That is your 3-teamer today, Rob. We're a couple of 3-teamers away from getting back in the plus. Hopefully, that first one is today. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the show and learned something. If you're looking for the picks, they're over at WagerTalk.com. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you in the morning.